Hello, welcome back to Fred in the Shed. I am super excited on this video because in the shack we have the Radioddity QT80, which, as you would have seen on the thumbnail, is the very latest version of my all-time favourite dark side FREEBAND CB radio. Really looking forward to getting stuck into this video. Let's crack the box and have a look at the radio. This radio came in a few days ago. I've been so busy I've not even managed to open the box. This is the first time that I'll be seeing it along with you. So there it is then, the Radioddity QT80. The 80 bit's quite important because the new power on this radio, the rated power is 80 watts SSB. Pretty amazing. So the first radio, the original radio, was quite complex in its menu system. This one I imagine will be the same. And yeah, a very nice, easy to read, very clear, very well illustrated user's manual. You know what I'm like. I do like decent user's manuals. And yeah, this one looks absolutely fine. Black painted metal bracket on the radio. I do like a painted bracket. It matches the radio. It will act as a stand for the radio. And let's have a look at the radio itself. Now the fascia, the front panel, is going to seem very familiar because obviously I have owned the predecessor, which in my version was the CRT 9900. I've owned that for about 10 years. We'll compare the two radios side by side in a minute, but I want to get this out. Oh, there it is. Very familiar, dual pots up here for power and volume, basically. Clarifier, squelch. Oh, that's the volume. Sorry, I'm getting confused. It's been a while. Yeah, volume's down there. That all feels very familiar. And then the channel control, which straight away, that feels a lot more precise than the old one. And I'll show you in a second on the old one, but my old one has started to loosen up over the years, and it can jump occasionally. That feels much improved. Screen looks very slightly larger compared to the original. We'll get some power on the radios in a moment, but yeah, it looks very familiar. It's like an old friend. It feels quite heavy, I will say. Just give me a second. We've got all the leads and everything in the back here. Oh, okay, so the lead now has a little connection plug. That's new. The old radio never had that. And just off the top of my head, and this is all off that power lead is a lot thicker than on the original radio, because these leads could overheat around the fuse area. Some people did suffer from that, but that's been beefed up. And the heatsink, that is a lot deeper. We will look at the original one, but that's a good centimetre deeper. I had hoped, I will be honest, I had hoped that they may have fitted a small cooling fan like you get on a HF radio, because the original version did get very hot. The MOSFET finals on it used to really get hot and occasionally burn out. But yeah, okay, they have improved the depth of that. So that's just a very quick look at the radio. We're going to have a much closer look in a moment. Let's have a look at what we get in the box here. So box of accessories. These will be the little screws that go in the side, and you get the mic clip as well there. Yeah, that's no problem. Just a quick look at the power lead. Yeah, this is much chunkier, much more substantial. Two inline fuses, and also that's good. There's also got an extra one there, just in case you may be short on the lead or something. So you at least retain one inline fuse. But like HF radios, you've also got one fuse in the negative lead as well. I believe this is rated at 15 amps. I think the original, was about 12 amps, but it pulled a lot more than that because of the output was much higher, and that was a problem with overheating. So this one shouldn't have that problem. It's much thicker, much like HF cable there. We'll just have a little quick look what else we get in the box. Okay, yeah. Now this, I don't know if this is unique to Radioddity. I don't know if this will be on the other versions, but they now supply you with a program lead. And also on the Radioddity website, you've got free access to the software for programming all of the bands and all of the channels. And that's something that I never had on the original radio. And the original radio did suffer from a problem that even though when the memories were in the memory, presets were in the memory, if you went ahead and you went into VFO mode and you adjusted the frequency, you lost the memories. And so many people got completely confused and ended up losing their UK40. I think it's a great thing that if you've got the programming cable, you've got the free software, you can set this radio up exactly how you want it. Personally, I'll probably have the UK40 in one band, and then I'll have the Euro block in another band, and then I'll have a few of my favourites, and then after that it will be a free-for-all. Now, when this radio ships to you, it's obviously not going to be shipped to you as a CB radio. You have to understand that this is a dark side radio, and it will need programming before you can use it on the CB channels, and even then it won't be compliant. It won't be a completely legal radio. You're going to be on the dark side. Just bear that in mind. Let's have a look at the supplied microphone. Now, on the original 9900 that I had, I never changed the microphone. I never found a need. I always got very, very good signal reports from that condenser microphone. I know some of you like to go back to older microphones. This is the new design here. This is the Radioddity version here. Very nice. It's a little bit more clicky than the old one, but it's not a bad thing. And we now have 3 buttons on the top of the microphone. We have a programmable button, programmable function button. Very handy. Personally, I'll probably put the squelch on that, so without touching the radio I can just flick on and off the squelch when I'm not shooting for DX. Now, of course, this is a electret condenser microphone, which means it will require power from the radio. And for the first time, I believe this radio now can be switched to a dynamic microphone, which are normally non-powered. So you're just going to have to be a little bit aware, though, that one of these pins, it's normally the centre one, I don't know, to be perfectly honest, without looking it up, but that's normally a hot wire, that normally has power. So if, for example, you've got an old dynamic mic like an static, if you're lucky enough to have one of those, and if you have got one, hang on to those, don't sell it, because they are becoming so collectible. They were such a good mic. But if you've got an old static, when you come to wire it, just be aware, just check one of those pins is going to be live. For God's sake, don't blow your radio. But yeah, some people prefer dynamic. I mean, generally dynamic microphones, they tend to be a little bit quieter, so they can be used in noisier environments. I always stuck with a standard mic on mine. I used to get Radio 5 reports all the time. So that's a very quick look of what's in the box. We've got a lot to get through on this video. Let's clear the bench, and then let's compare the old radio with the new radio. So here they are then. This is the new QT80 on top, and then my older CRT 9900 on the bottom there. This radio will be sold under different brands. It's already been launched as the Anytone 666 Pro. I imagine it will end up as the CRT 9900 version 8, I expect. It will be sold under KPO and CamSat and other makes, but it should basically be the same radio. And although the layout looks the same, it has a new PCB circuit board. Everything inside is completely different. They've just kept the original design on the basis if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think that's a good thing, because I have to just say that this radio, the bottom one, the 9900, when this came out 10 years ago, not long after sideband become legalised here in the UK, although this isn't a legal radio, of course. And this radio was so important for DXers, really, freebanders. It was just something that we never had before, and well, I suppose we took advantage. We were fortunate that the controlling bodies here in the UK, the people that monitor radio equipment, they really have had their resources completely capped and reduced, and there is a small risk of using these radios illegally, but they haven't got the power that they once had, and we, to be honest, we took advantage of that. So I'm really glad that they've kept the original design, even though inside it is a completely new radio. Now, as I mentioned, yeah, my channel select here which at the moment is in tuning mode. It did become a little bit worn. It's okay at the moment, but when you was in channel mode, and that's another thing as well, you can see you've now got the frequency and you've got the channel on the same display, whereas you had to change it before. But if you went a little bit too enthusiastic, it did jump back a channel. But I think they've really improved that. There's so much more resistance on this. This was never that tight. That is much more precise. And as I say, you've got the two displays there. That's a really nice touch. So yeah, that's an improvement. Quick look on the buttons. Now, of course, this is a heavily menu-based radio, but they are clear at it. They're now showing that they're dual function, and that should reduce the amount of menus to scroll through. You've got two menu sets. I imagine it's the same, and I haven't even read the instructions, so I'm just going by my memory. But the main menu would be if you held down the function key there. And there we go. Now I mean, there's so many settings on this radio. I'm not going to get a chance to go through them. RX noise reduction, TX noise reduction. So this does have noise reduction now. That's a new feature, I believe. I don't think they had it on the original. So an active noise reduction system. And also, one thing that I did notice when I was reading up about it, the new radio now has deviation on FM and sideband. For you non-CB people, when I talk about deviation, I'm talking about bandwidth. You can control the bandwidth as on a shortwave radio. On FM, I think it's adjustable from 2 to 4 kilohertz, and on sideband it's adjustable from 3 to 4 kilohertz, and that should help you even more get your DX contacts. There should also be a short menu system. If you hold down the VFO, yeah, there you go. So these are the short menu options, probably what you're going to use. I mean, echo if you really want to, I suppose. 10k shift, Roger beeps, very distinctive, 9900, high cut, which I always use. Yeah, so you just got the basic 6 controls there, save you scrolling through the menus. But I do like what they've done with the buttons there. I do like the fact that they are now dual function. When it comes to power of these radios, well, the original never lacked power, did it? I believe when it was launched, it was acclaimed 50 watts FM, 60 watts sideband, and 30 watts AM. However, we very quickly found out that that was a very conservative set of figures. And on sideband, on one of my meters, I clocked 90 watts output, and I think Dave M0OGY on a much better meter than I've got, he saw a swing of 100 watts. So this 9900 always kicked hard. It always punched much above its weight, which was a good thing for DXing, because you could really get through on a pile up. And also that 90-100 watts was very clear with the condenser microphone. Sometimes if you push a radio really hard beyond its parameters, the audio can become distorted, it can clip, but it didn't. It was clear right to the bottom of the barrel, if you like. So the new radio has slightly improved on the power if it needed to, but rated at 50 watts FM. I think it's about 45 watts AM, not 100% sure, and now 80 watts on SSB, and that is the stated power. If, like the predecessor, that's a conservative estimate, I can well imagine this will do 100 watts on SSB, so we're into HF territory. Now that's all well and good, and I know everyone likes power, but the problem that we had with the original 9900 and its different variations was, because it was punching above its weight, it was heat. The radio would run excessively hot around the back, which is why I think it's good they've increased the size of the heatsink. And some people who ran this flat out on FM especially, the radio did overheat, and its MOSFET finals did burn out, unfortunately. And I can still remember, because so many people come back on my videos, I still remember that the replacement upgraded finals were 13 N10s. And there was 4 of them, and they were quite easy to resolder, and I think they were about £13 delivered. So it was a DIY job that you could replace the finals. Now, I'd imagine that this one, obviously being more powerful, it's probably got the updated MOSFET output final transistors in it. It's got 4 of them again. And I say you've got a much larger heat sink, so hopefully they've cured the heating problem, and hopefully the new radio won't get so hot that you just can't touch the back of it without burning your fingers. Let's have a quick look around the radio and compare it with the original. So very carefully, so moving on to the side of the radio here, if I try and line these up without scratching them. So straight away, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? You've got this much deeper heatsink. I think there are more fins. We'll have a look when we go around the back. And also, I've just noticed as well, we do have now some cooling vents in the top of the radio. The original didn't have that, so that is improved, and it is really, really needed. So now, once we're around the back of the radios, as you can see, yeah, there's more fins here to aid the cooling. Very, very slightly deeper, and that's really about it. Everything else seems to be about the same. 259 connection, extension speaker socket. I did break mine. Just, it might be me being a little bit clumsy with handling, but I did actually manage to break the soldering on that. So extension speaker or headphones, and then you have the mini USB socket there for programming. And as I mentioned, although actually no, when I look at it, the new cable, I'm a little bit off camera here, but the new cable is, yeah, it is slightly thicker. It's not a lot actually. I thought it was more. Okay. Yeah, it's very, very slightly thicker. I thought it looked more to me. It looks like you've got the same inline fuse holder, which did have problems. It did cause problems before. These tended to heat up. But as I say, the new radio does have a junction there, like a connector, whereas the old radio didn't. And that will make it easier for moving around. Also worth noting, I've just noticed there you've got some proper, looks like some proper brass inserts on the threads for the bracket there. That's nice to see that those can be very easy to strip if they're just incorporated into the body. In this section, in a moment, I'll pop the back off the radio, and we can compare the new model to the old model side by side and see if we can work out what's been changed, well, to the best of my ability, that is. Now, unfortunately, I did get a little bit confused on this section of the video. I changed the jumper setting on the motherboard, thinking that I needed to do that to get the radio to enter expanded mode so I could put on the UK FM channels. I later found out that you only need to change that jumper if you want to allow the radio to tune all the way down to 21 megahertz, the 15 meter band. If you leave the jumper alone with a few button presses that I will show you in a second, then you can get the radio into expanded mode for the UK. Also, to make it more confusing, later on when I used the programming software, it looks like you're able to set the radio in the expanded mode anyway. So yeah, you only need to change this jumper, as I say, if you want to go all the way down to 21 megs. I hope that makes sense. So this is the two radios side by side. This is the original radio here on the left and the new one on the right. And I'm no expert, I'm not an electronics expert, you know that if you follow the channel, but I mean straight away you can see that it's a completely new board layout. It's much simpler than the older model, which is pretty standard nowadays. It's missing a few of these little trimmer pots here, which I imagine was for the alignment on the old model. Moving towards the back of the radio, we do have this breakout board. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but that's different. And then right at the back we have the MOSFET final power output transistors here, and they're pretty much the same actually. I mean, I've got this bit of screening, that's the same, but obviously the new model has a more substantial alloy heatsink, which should help with the heat problem. But yeah, overall everything's nicely screened. yeah, it looks pretty good quality. The fascia panel on the radio, which is pretty much the same other than the LCD is slightly different. Again, on the new model it's just connected by a single ribbon cable, whereas the old model had this sort of breakout wires going onto the board here. Now off camera, I'll zoom in a moment. On the new model there's a little connector on the board here which has got 1, 2, 3 written on it, and a little jumper peg across, and I believe that's what I've got to change. I believe when this ships it's obviously in 10 meter mode, and I believe I need to change that across to expand the radio. So let me zoom in and we'll do that, and then we'll check if that works. So here we go then, you can see now. So this is currently shorting pin 1 and pin 2, and we're just going to swap that over so it goes between pin 2 and pin 3. There you go. So it should be as easy as that. Let's switch the radio on and see if it's been expanded. Okay, a typical Fred in the shed moment, too much enthusiasm, not enough knowledge. It appears that if you just want to expand the radio into HF mode, which is 24.715 megahertz up to 30.105, you don't need to change that jumper. By changing that jumper, it just lowers the bottom end. It takes the radio down to 21 megahertz, which I think is, what's that, 14 or 15 meters, something like that. So it might be that you don't have to change that jumper. There's a set of buttons you need to press when you start the radio to put it into expanded mode, and that's what I'm going to do now. So it says you hold down the memory and the band button, so that's those two, whilst you power the radio on. You've got to be so ambidextrous here, right? So memory, and this is going to be quite tricky actually. I'll need to hold those two down and power on at the same time. Okay, bear with me. Right, I think I've got it. So memory, yeah, and then power on. There we go, and now we can select ham band, HF band, ham band. So I think we need ham band, and then it says hold down the function key for a long press, and it should let us, and that should. Okay, so what we got now, so we're now on the ham band. Let's try the band. I think I may have needed HF. Yeah, so we're still in the, oh I see, we're still on the 10 meter band here. Right, need to do that again. So I obviously need the HF mode, which stands to reason when I think about it. So we hold down the memory and the band, turn the radio on. This time let's try HF band and then hold the function key. Ah, there we go, that looks better. So when I go through the bands now, here we go, 27 megs, E, F, G, that's gone up onto the 10 meter band. And there we go, got some new ones. So yeah, 21 megahertz. Obviously you can't transmit down on 21 megahertz. One thing I'm going to say is I don't know about spurious emissions from the radio. I don't know if it's got bandpass filtering for this frequency. Obviously the radio is designed for 10 meters, and that should be okay for 11 meters. If you are a ham and you're thinking you're getting a 15 meter radio, I don't know whether that's safe to transmit on. It's certainly safe to listen to though. And I've got loads more bands now. So there we go. So we now start at 25 megahertz, and then we come up into the yeah, there we are, we're into the 11 megahertz into the, so that's good. So there we go, that's pretty much like the old radio, just with those extra couple of bands there. Obviously, and obviously we can see the channel here. And that's just at the moment wide banded. I assume if you press that, yeah. So if you press that, you can just manually choose the channel. I wonder if that I wonder if it remembers it. Let's change that to 8, for example. No, it didn't. See that it went back to 5. Whereas on the old radio, if you change the frequency, it would automatically override that preset. So that's good. they've fixed it. So at the moment we've got no UK FM built into the radio, and so we now need to connect it to the computer, and I want to reprogram this to give me the UK FM, and then probably just the EU block on another band, and the rest of it I'll leave it completely wide. So I think that's where we'll leave the first part, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, and on the second part we'll reprogram the radio so we get the UK 40, and I'll take you through that. I also think we'll put it on a bench meter. I've only got a cheap one, but I'll put it on a bench meter, and we'll just do a basic test of the output on the radio in part 2, and then finally I'll bring it back in here. And as I mentioned, the conditions are pretty poor, but I will try and get at least one little European DX contact. So all that's coming up on the next video, just in a few days, as soon as I can get it edited and everything. So anyway, as always, thumbs up from Fred in the Shed. Thank you for your view time. I do appreciate each and every one of you. As always, please, please, please look after each other for me. Stay safe. And of course, I will catch you on the next video very soon. Cheers, guys.
Fred's in the shed where the magic unfolds. Fred in the shed with his trusty CB. He's a friend to the lonely on a frequency.